The old grandfather clock in the foyer sounded its 5 o'clock chime, each gong echoing through a house that was unnervingly silent. Today was my birthday, and the Jiang estate should have been buzzing with the frantic energy of caterers and the murmur of early guests. Instead, an unnerving quiet had settled over the marble floors and high ceilings, a quiet I had personally orchestrated. When the heavy oak door swung open, my father, David Song, stood silhouetted against the evening light. He had a look of confused surprise on his face, his eyes sweeping over the empty grand hall. Beside him, clutching a worn backpack, was a girl who was a 5-point carbon copy of him. Heather. "Tori," he called out, his voice laced with suspicion. "I thought you were hosting your birthday party tonight." I didn't look up from my phone, letting the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. I was lounging on one of the velvet chaises in the living room, a picture of casual indifference. "Changed my mind," I said, my voice flat. Suddenly wasn't in the mood for a party this year. He was a master of recovering his composure. The flicker of annoyance in his eyes vanished, replaced by a strained paternal warmth. He nudged Heather forward. "Well, then this is a good chance for you all to get acquainted. This is Heather Song, the new daughter I've adopted. Heather, this is your sister, Victoria, and your brother, Trevor." Beside me on the couch, my brother Trevor looked up from his video game. His eyes landed on Heather and immediately lit up with a predictable hormonal spark. He nudged my shoulder. "A new sister, Tori?" A faint, mirthless smile touched my lips. At this point, Trevor was the brother who, on the surface, cared about his real sister. It was a pity that, in the life I remembered all too well, he would turn on me for this very girl, his devotion to her so absolute that he wouldn't hesitate to orchestrate my end. But that was then. I had been reborn 5 days ago, yanked from the cold, dark void, and thrust back into this gilded cage. My reputation was destroyed overnight. That single staged outburst was the first domino. It led to my grandfather, the true patriarch of the Jiang family and my staunchest supporter, growing deeply disappointed in me. My friends abandoned me, my parents championed her, my fiancé broke our engagement for her, and my brother sealed my fate, pushing me into the waiting hands of monsters. I died a humiliating, brutal death on a dirty back street. When I woke up, it was 5 days before my birthday, the sunlight streaming through my window like a promise. And I finally understood. I saw with chilling clarity how every person I called family had forged a link in the chain that dragged me to my doom. Their so-called love was just a series of death warrants. Now, hearing my father's lecture, I felt nothing. "Tori," he was saying, his voice taken on a preachy tone. "I only brought Heather home because her circumstances are so pitiful. You need to be more generous. Don't always be thinking about bullying others." As if on cue, Heather sank to her knees, her eyes so much like his filled with tears as she looked up at me. "Sister, please, rest assured, I won't fight with you over Mom and Dad. I just really want a home." There it was, the same script. I hadn't even moved a muscle, yet I was already the villain of the piece, the cruel heiress tormenting the poor orphan. Just then, my mother descended the grand staircase, her brow furrowed in confusion at the scene, but confusion quickly gave way to her default setting, accusation. "Victoria, what kind of tricks are you playing now? Bullying people again?" She strode forward, intending to help Heather up. "This," I said, my voice cutting through the air, "is your new adopted daughter, Mother." I let a small, sharp laugh escape. And our new adopted daughter, it seems, has a peculiar habit of kneeling the moment she enters a room. My mother's hand froze. Her face darkened as she turned on my father. "Adopted daughter? What adopted daughter? Why are you suddenly adopting a girl? Don't tell me this is some bastard child you had with one of your mistresses." "Don't be ridiculous," my father snapped, pulling out a set of official-looking documents. "Her situation was tragic. I went through all the proper channels at the foster agency." The papers were real, I had no doubt, but so was the part about her being his child. He left her to languish in the system for years. Heather Song. The name of his first mistress, I recalled with a new cold clarity, was Heya. In English, that would be Sia, a summer name, Heather. Close enough. I locked eyes with the girl still cowering behind my father. I beckoned to her with a single manicured finger. Come here. She feigned surprise, shuffling forward timidly, but I could see the contempt glittering in the depths of her eyes. Oh, she thought she had me. What's your name? I asked, my voice deceptively sweet. Sister, my name is Heather Song. Dad just said it. Such a coincidence. Your surname is also Song? Your birth mother's last name was Sia, wasn't it? Heather froze, and before she could think to lie, she gave a short, involuntary nod. Bingo. My mother went rigid. I don't agree, she hissed. I will not agree. I almost laughed at the delicious irony. I looked at the nest of vipers before me and deliberately shattered my mother's resolve. Oh, but I do. I agree. The silence that followed was absolute. Everyone stared at me as if I'd grown a second head. Tori, you really agree? My father asked, his voice thick with disbelief. He had every right to be cautious. In my past life, his entire plan hinged on provoking me, on making me a public spectacle to alienate my grandfather. In the Jiang Song household, I was the one who held the real power. My father was just a social climbing husband my mother had chosen against everyone's advice. My mother was a flighty disaster. My brother was a useless playboy. I was the heir, handpicked by Grandfather Jiang himself. And that was why my dear father had concocted such a vile scheme to tear me down. Are you insane, Victoria? My mother shrieked, her voice shrill. You dare to defy my words? I looked at her, my expression placid. Mother, you haven't raised me a single day in my life. On what grounds must I listen to you? The disgust I felt was a physical thing, a sour taste in my mouth. They had all pushed me toward my death for their own selfish desires. This time, none of them, not my parents, not my brother, and certainly not my so-called fiancé, would be spared. Perhaps my gaze was too predatory. Even Trevor shifted uncomfortably. Tori, what's with that look? It's creepy. I shook his hand off my arm, repulsed by his touch. I turned back to the room. I agreed to adopt Heather Song. Before my father's elation or my mother's fury could fully form, I spoke again. However, I paused, letting the word hang in the air. Then I clapped my hands twice, a sharp, commanding sound. From a small side room, another person emerged. The color drained from my mother's face. She looked utterly horrified because the girl who stepped into the light shared a shocking 7-point resemblance to a younger version of herself. My father and Heather stared, completely bewildered. Trevor's eyes, however, went wide with the same spark of interest he'd shown Heather just moments before. I savored the tableau, my heart a cold, steady drum in my chest. What a coincidence, I announced to the stunned room. It seems I've also just adopted a little sister. This is Vivian. Vivian bowed her head gracefully, then looked up, her gaze sweeping over everyone. Hello, sister. Hello, Dad. Hello, brother. Her eyes finally landed on my mother, and they were filled with a deep, simmering resentment. Hello, Mother. A smile played on my lips as I watched the two illegitimate daughters stand side by side, one the spitting image of my father, the other a ghost of my mother's past. This house was finally about to get interesting. My father was the first to find his voice, his words sputtering with outrage. Absurd! Tori, what are you doing? Whose child is this? Did you kidnap her? Take her back immediately. Just because you dislike Heather doesn't mean you can use an innocent child to make a point. Kidnap? I had to suppress a laugh. The lengths he would go to protect his precious Heather were truly something to behold. Before I could even respond, Vivian, my own carefully chosen weapon, stepped forward and directly addressed Heather. Her voice was a perfect mimicry of Heather's earlier performance, soft, trembling, and full of supposed innocence. Oh, sister, please don't misunderstand," she began, her eyes wide. "I didn't come here to disrupt your new family. I came to join it. Sister Tori saw how pitiful my situation was and brought me to the Song estate. So, you see, I'm just like you. I'm an adopted daughter too. We both know what it's like to not have a home." The words, so familiar, hit Heather like a physical blow. She couldn't help but recoil, pushing Vivian away instinctively. "I don't know you. Why would I know you?" Vivian capitalized on the push, stumbling backward with a dramatic cry and landing gracefully on the plush rug. "Ah, sister, why would you push me? I was just trying to explain. You're an adopted daughter in this house too. Why are you acting so superior to me, even more so than Sister Tori?" I nearly applauded. Vivian's green tea performance was every bit as potent as Heather's. As predicted, my mother, who had been furious at my father a moment ago, was now incandescent with rage on Vivian's behalf. She stormed forward and, to my immense satisfaction, slapped Heather square across the face. "Heather Song, who gave you permission to hurt Vivian? Kneel and apologize to her." My father instantly leapt in front of Heather, shielding her. "Why are you doing, Linda? Why did you hit Heather?" "Why can't I hit her? She's an adopted daughter, isn't she? Can't I discipline her?" "You can't hit Heather over some girl of unknown origin. I don't agree to this Vivian staying. And I don't agree to Heather Song setting foot in my house." I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing out loud. The show was magnificent. Let the green tea fight the green tea. It was time for magic to defeat magic. I cleared my throat, drawing their attention. "Father, I already agreed to you adopting Heather. On what grounds can you forbid me from adopting Vivian?" I tilted my head. "You're so anxious about Heather. Could it be that she really is your illegitimate child?" He flinched. "Of course not. Can't I adopt someone out of simple compassion?" "I completely agree." I nodded sympathetically. "But Vivian's situation is also incredibly tragic. Why can't she be adopted?" He was cornered, his face flushing red, unable to produce a single logical reason. My idiot brother, Trevor, ever the opportunist, chimed in. "Just agree to everything, Mom, Dad. Anyway, Grandfather listens to Tori." He was trying to help in his own moronic way, and I almost laughed. With allies like these, I couldn't possibly fail to make their lives a living hell. I turned my gaze at Heather, who was hiding behind my father. "Oh, dear Sister Heather," I cooed. "You haven't said a word. You just keep staring at Vivian. You're not jealous of her, are you? I mean, Vivian's background is quite sad. Her father was a drug trafficker who died in prison, and her birth mother—" I let my eyes drift meaningfully to my own mother. "Her birth mother abandoned her for a man." My mother's face became a mask of strained composure. Hers was pale with fury. "And you may not fully understand the situation here." I finished, my voice dropping to a cold, clear tone as I looked directly at Heather. "In this house, I am the one who makes the decisions." She flinched as if I'd struck her, stumbling back into my father's arms and promptly fainting. Or pretending to. "Look at that," I said, pointing a finger at the pair, leaning on each other like that. "They almost look like husband and wife, don't you think, Mother?" My mother's head snapped up, her eyes blazing with a venomous hatred as she stared at my father, cradling his bastard daughter. The screaming match that followed was legendary, but my father, trapped and exposed, eventually conceded. Fine. Isn't it chaotic enough?" he yelled. "Adopt them both. Victoria, you remember to go to the Jiang residence and explain this to your grandfather." Just as I planned. "In that case," I said, turning to Trevor with a saccharine smile, "Trevor, dear brother, tell me, which new sister do you want in the room next to yours?" Trevor froze. Then a slow, lecherous grin spread across his face. He looked from Heather to Vivian and back again like a sultan choosing a concubine. Well, sis, either one is fine. I have a better idea, I said cheerfully. Why not one on the left and one on the right? You're all siblings now. Shouldn't you bond? Absolutely not. Two voices, my mother's and father's, rang out in unison. Why not? I asked, the picture of innocence. Shouldn't they foster a good relationship? After all, there are no blood ties between them. And if Trevor happens to fall for one of them later, wouldn't that just make our family even closer? The room fell silent. My parents' opposition only became more frantic, but I knew my brother's rebellious nature too well. The more they forbade something, the more he desired it. Why can't I? He demanded, puffing out his chest. Tori already agreed. We'll do it her way. Without another word, he grabbed one girl with each hand and triumphantly marched them upstairs. A smirk touched my lips. In my past life, Heather had managed to climb into Trevor's bed all on her own. This time, with Vivian added to the mix, a world of rich and splendid opportunities awaited. The choice of who would seize it was now entirely up to them. As I turned to head to my own room, my father's voice stopped me. Victoria, did you drink the milk Mrs. Davis prepared for you these past few days? I paused, my back to him. I forced my voice to remain casual. Of course, I gave it to the toilet. It was very thirsty. A look of smug, venomous satisfaction crossed his face. He thought I was just being a difficult teenager. He smiled. Tori, a big decision like canceling your party, you should still consult your father. After all, I am your dad. I gave him a single, empty look over my shoulder and walked away without another word. He wouldn't have many more chances to smile like that. Rebirth had clarified so many things. Why had I, at my own birthday party, descended into a screaming rage I couldn't control? Why in the month that followed did my mental state fray, leaving me paranoid and prone to fits of terror? It was the milk. Or rather, what he put in the milk. My own father, the man I once thought adored me, had been slowly poisoning me with a psychoactive drug to make me unstable, all for the sake of his other daughter. What a good father! And my mother. Her logic had always been a mystery. After running away from home, she'd returned when her lover was imprisoned, abandoning their child. My grandfather, helpless, had arranged potential suitors for her, but she'd chosen my father, a man with nothing to his name. She gave birth to me and Trevor, then ignored us. Yet in my past life, she showered Heather with a bizarre, intense affection. I never understood where it came from. Not until I found Vivian. I hadn't been in my room long when a soft knock came at the door. It was Vivian. She looked around my suite with undisguised awe and then bowed deeply. Sister Tori, thank you. Thank you for bringing me back. Thank you for giving me a home. I will definitely help you solve all your troubles. I smiled, observing her. This child clawing her way out of the gutter was a quick study. She was already trying to curry favor. I waved a dismissive hand. I just saw you were in a pitiful state, that's all. I don't require you to do anything. Go rest. I'm tired. Sister, she hesitated, carefully studying my expression. Do you know about my birth mother? I laughed lightly. How could I possibly know? Everything I know is what you told me, isn't it? Vivian visibly relaxed, offered a few more polite words, and left. I watched the door close, my smile fading. Oh, but my dear, sweet sister, I knew far more than that. In my past life, my mother would often look at Heather and absent-mindedly call her Vivian. At the time, my mind was too clouded to question it. After being reborn, I hired a private investigator to dig into my mother's past. And I found her. I found the real Vivian. She was in the grimy restroom of a dive bar, cornered by a group of girls. "You dare steal my man?" the leader snarled. "Girls, strip her. I want photos to post online so everyone can see this shameless tramp." Vivian even then was a fighter. Through her tears, she shot back, "It's not my fault you can't control your own boyfriend. I didn't force him to like me." Just as the lead girl raised her hand to strike, my people intervened. I paid them off handsomely and walked into the restroom alone. I tilted Vivian's chin up, studying her face. And in that moment, I finally understood my mother's strange affection for Heather. It wasn't about blood. It was about a type. Heather and Vivian were almost identical, not in their features, but in the potent, manipulative green tea aura they both exuded. I suppressed the urge to simply end her right there. Instead, I played the part of a naive, kind-hearted rich girl. I helped her fix her torn clothes. "Honey, where's your family?" Her lower lip trembled and tears welled in her eyes. "My dad, he's in prison. My mom, she ran off with another man." She clutched my sleeve. "Sister, you seem so powerful. Can you help me? Please, I'm miserable. I just want to live a normal life." I smiled and readily agreed. "Of course. I only have a brother at home. I've always wanted a sweet little sister. Come live with me." And so I brought Vivian to the Song estate. When she walked through the door and saw the family portrait hanging in the foyer, saw the face of the mother who had abandoned her, her eyes filled with a hatred that was raw and very, very real. She wasn't faking that. This time, I'd brought my mother's greatest regret to live under her own roof. Now, let's see how long the counterfeit Heather could possibly last. Vivian did not disappoint. She dedicated herself to undermining Heather at every turn, using the brand of saccharine sabotage that was a marvel to behold. At the dinner table, when Heather would dutifully place a piece of prime rib on our father's plate, Vivian would let out a soft, concerned sigh. "Oh, Sister Heather," she'd say, her voice dripping with gentle correction. "You only serve Dad. Don't you hold some resentment towards Mom? Now that we're in the Song family, old grievances should be left behind. After all, Linda is your mother now, too." Then she'd smile brightly. "Oh, but I forgot. You grew up in a group home, so you probably didn't have the chance to learn proper table etiquette. It's not like me, I suppose. I believe in giving everyone equal attention." With that, she would gracefully serve a portion to everyone at the table, including a stunned Heather. "Don't be embarrassed, Heather. If you don't know something, you can always ask Sister Tori. She's very kind. She won't look down on you." Heather would be on the verge of tears, but Vivian was always faster. She'd suddenly put down her own fork, her face crumpling in distress. "Why won't you look at me, Sister Heather? Do you dislike me? But I'm only trying to help you." Heather's own welling tears would be trapped, frozen on her lashes as she was left speechless. First blood. When Trevor stumbled home drunk one night, propped up by his friends, Heather rushed to his side, fluttering around him. "Trevor, are you okay? Let me help you to your room." Vivian, seemingly oblivious, walked over with the glass of water and accidentally stumbled, dousing Heather completely. "Ah, Vivian, are you crazy?" Heather shrieked. Vivian took Trevor's arm from his friends, her eyes wide with shock. "Oh, Sister Heather, are you all right? I saw a puddle on the floor and was afraid you might slip. I guess I overcorrected. You won't blame me, will you?" Heather, dripping and furious, was again rendered silent. Double kill. The masterpiece was when Heather decided to cook a meal to win everyone over. Vivian insisted on helping. I never saw what happened in the kitchen, but when Heather carried a large tureen of soup out, Vivian rushed forward to help, tangled her own feet, and sent the entire pot of scalding soup onto herself, not Heather. Before Heather could even speak, Vivian was crying hysterically. "Why do you dislike me so much? Why did you purposely pour soup on me? I was only trying to help you in the kitchen. I wasn't going to take your credit." My mother, seeing Vivian in pain, flew into a rage and slapped Heather twice. "Do you know how expensive this tableware is? If you break it, who's going to pay?" My father jumped into the fray to defend his child, and the familiar screaming match began. And through it all, Heather stood there, forgotten and irrelevant. Every time this happened, I would sit quietly on the sidelines, a satisfied spectator. But even the best drama gets old, and I was beginning to get bored. As if hearing my thoughts, a new player decided to join the chaos. My fiancé, Lucas Croft. I was about to head out when I saw him at the front door, his hand raised to knock. A wave of revulsion washed over me. I knew he wasn't here for me, he was looking for Heather. I turned to walk away, but he saw me. "Tori," he said, a smug smile on his face. "Did you know I was coming? That's why you came to the door. We really are in sync." I held up my designer handbag, my expression bored. "Does it look like I'm welcoming you? I'm leaving. Get out of the way." Lucas looked at me, utterly stunned. "Tori." I couldn't blame him for his shock. In my past life, despite my arrogant demeanor, I had been utterly devoted to him. He, in turn, treated me with the same casual condescension as my mother, constantly chiding me for being a spoiled brat. I must have been blind to have ever given a fool like him the power to hurt me. I had intended to just leave, but a better idea bloomed in my mind. A wicked, wonderful idea. I turned and walked back into the living room. "What is it? Say it quickly." Lucas followed me in, his eyes darting around the room, clearly searching for someone. "Well, I saw that you didn't have your birthday party a while back, so I just came to see how you are." "A while back was over a month ago," I said, sinking into an armchair and staring at him impatiently. "You've seen me, now leave." I deliberately raised my voice. As expected, Heather emerged from her room, followed closely by Vivian, who had heard the commotion. Lucas's eyes lit up, and he instinctively started to move toward Heather. I let out a cold, sharp laugh. He froze. "Tori," he said, forcing his attention back to me, "who are these two?" I chuckled. "What, did your rural village just get internet access? You don't know my family adopted 2 daughters?" A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. "Tori, why are you so aggressive today? You were never like this before." "Oh, is it that time of the month? A girl should be less angry." "It's not a good look. When you marry into the Croft family, you can't behave so disgracefully and embarrass us." I laughed out loud at his sanctimonious act. "What are you laughing at?" he demanded. I gestured toward the 2 girls standing by the staircase. "Allow me to introduce them. My 2 adopted sisters, Heather Song and Vivian Cow." He gave them a cursory, dismissive glance. "I see them. So what?" But I saw the way his body tensed just for a second when his eyes lingered on Heather. I didn't expose him, not yet. "So," I continued, a slow smile spreading across my face, "the Croft family's marriage alliance is no longer limited to just me. If you're not satisfied with me, feel free to annul the engagement. You have 2 other options right here." I looked from Heather to Vivian, my smile widening. "Sisters, if either of you takes a liking to Mr. Croft here, you should let him know. We wouldn't want a situation where the 2 adopted daughters of the Song family start fighting over one man and become a public joke, now would we?" Lucas scrambled to my side. "Tori, what are you saying? Of course I love you." I made a gagging sound. If he wasn't still sneaking glances at Heather, I might have almost believed him. I stood up, bored of the game. "I have things to do. You stay here and bond of my dear sisters." I walked out without a backward glance. Lucas didn't try to stop me. Why would he? They were all convinced that I was drinking the special milk every day. They were certain it was only a matter of time before I lost my mind completely. Their plan, in their eyes, was already a success. They could afford to be arrogant. I went to the office. In my past life, my father had coddled me, convinced me to hand over the management of the company my grandfather gave me. And I'd spent my days shopping and partying. After I went mad, those assets naturally fell into his hands. A useless Victoria Jiang had no value as a marriage prospect, and Lucas had promptly broken our engagement and started a sordid affair with Heather. And my love-blind brother, Trevor, was somehow convinced by Heather to join them, creating a twisted, happy threesome. After my rebirth, I had my investigator look into it. The plot had started long before Heather's arrival. My father had been taking Heather to parties I couldn't be bothered to attend for months. She and Lucas were already well acquainted, already sleeping together. No wonder everyone in my circle accepted her so quickly. It was I who was the outsider all along. It was my trust that gave them the knife to stab me with. I spent the entire day at the office, gathering evidence of my father's corporate malfeasance. By the time I returned home late at night, Lucas was long gone. But Vivian was waiting for me outside my bedroom door. I arched an eyebrow, a little surprised. Vivian was usually more composed. "Vivian," I said, my voice calm as I gestured for her to rise. "You are the third young lady of this house, not a servant. Stop kneeling. It's unbecoming." I watched as she awkwardly got to her feet. "Now, what is it?" Vivian followed me into my room and immediately began her report. "Sister, you don't know. The moment you left, Lucas started flirting openly with Heather. He even stayed for lunch. Afterward, they disappeared into her bedroom for hours." She took a breath, her voice laced with righteous indignation. "And it was a good thing Trevor wasn't home, or he would have flown into a rage and fought her for Lucas. Lucas only left this evening." I rubbed my temples, feigning weariness. I had my own ways of knowing these things. I didn't need her breathless reports. "And? What are you planning to do about it?" I cut her off. "The Crofts aren't the most powerful family, but they aren't insignificant. They'd be a decent match for you." A calculating look flickered in Vivian's eyes. "But sister, he's your fiancé. What you said today, was it true?" "Men are just men," I said with a dismissive shrug. "If you want him, take him. But whether it's you or Heather who ends up with him, that depends on your own abilities." A flash of delight crossed her face, and she thanked me profusely. The greed in her eyes was barely contained. I wondered, with detached curiosity, if Heather could possibly win this round. My frequent trips to the company were making my father nervous. He tried to probe me about it several times, but I deflected each attempt. However, after I systematically fired 2 of his key loyalists, he could no longer contain himself. "Victoria," he said sharply at the dinner table, "you seem to be going to the office quite often lately." I dabbed my lips with a napkin. "It's my company. I'm of age. Isn't it natural that I start taking over?" His temper flared. "You're of age, so you can disrespect your father? Did you consult me? You know nothing, yet you go in firing people left and right. Do you know how much resentment you're causing? If you run the company into the ground, how will you take responsibility?" "Then what do you propose, dear father?" I asked sweetly. "I think you lack the ability to manage it alone," he said with a cold huff. "Why don't we have Heather go and help you?" The audacity was almost laughable. I glanced at Heather, who was pretending to be absorbed in her food, but the smirk playing on her lips gave her away. "Oh, and what do you think, Heather?" She looked up, her expression a mask of humility. Sister, Dad is just worried you'll be overworked. If you don't mind, I could help share some of the burden. Before I could reply, my mother scoffed. Why is Victoria not good enough, but Heather is? In that case, I think Vivian should go. My lips curled. Exactly, Father. Your favoritism is a bit too obvious. Heather is your adopted daughter, but isn't Vivian one as well? This is ridiculous, he snapped. What skills does Vivian have to compare with Heather? On cue, Vivian's eyes filled with tears. Dad, I know you don't like me because of my background, but I am a little more qualified than Sister Heather. After all, I am a proper university student. Sister Heather, on the other hand, resources are limited in the foster system. I doubt she had many years of formal education. Heather's face went white. She couldn't refute it because it was true. My dear father, so busy plotting against me and spending the money he siphoned from the company on his own vices, had never bothered to provide for Heather's education. He had left her to rot. In the end, the only person he ever truly loved was himself. Both Heather and I were merely pawns in his game. But I felt no pity for her. A pitiful person always has a hateful side. She was an illegitimate child who coveted what was not hers. She had stolen my life. How could I ever feel sorry for her? I tuned out their bickering and left for my room. Without my permission, their arguments were meaningless. Ultimately, Heather did not get into the company. Instead, she grew even closer to Lucas, a development I'm sure my father orchestrated. But they hadn't counted on Vivian. Vivian, who was cut from the same cloth as Heather, but was arguably prettier and far more ruthless. Lucas's attention, once fixed on Heather, began to drift. One evening, Vivian came to my room, her face a mask of distress. Sister, today Heather pretended to fall, and Lucas spent the entire afternoon in her room again. And Trevor, he came home and went straight to her room too. What should we do? I smiled. Why are you asking me? Shouldn't you fight for your own things? She bit her lip, her eyes turning red. I'm afraid of upsetting Mom and Dad. I don't want to cause chaos in the house. Cause chaos? I let out a short, sharp laugh. You think this house isn't already a circus. And don't forget, I decide who stays and who goes. You are the only sister I brought home. You need to fight for your place. If you can't handle a simple matter like this, how can I trust you with bigger things? Then, even if Mother favors you, if you have no ability, I can't just keep feeding a useless mouth, can I? Vivian trembled and instinctively dropped to her knees. Sister, you're joking. Even if Mom likes me, I am definitely closer to you. Her eyes flashed with a deep, hidden resentment as she clenched her fists. I'm just an adopted child. I bent down and lifted her chin. I told you, you are the third young lady of this house. Don't kneel. It cheapens you. Look at Heather. She came from nothing, yet she carries herself like a true lady. I paused, studying Vivian's face. Your face is prettier than hers, but her eyes are truly beautiful, so bright and expressive. A man could get lost in them. I hear she uses eye drops constantly to keep them looking that way. I patted her shoulder. It's late, go get some rest. 2 days later, it happened. Heather was rushed to the hospital. A corrosive chemical had somehow gotten into her eye drops. The acid had spilled from her eye onto her face. One eye was blinded, and half of her face was gruesomely disfigured. The timing was perfect. The household staff was on a 3-day leave I had granted them. My father was out all night with one of his mistresses. My mother had taken Vivian on a bonding shopping trip out of town. Trevor was, as usual, nowhere to be found. And I was conveniently away on a business trip. By the time anyone found her, it was the next day. Lucas was the first to arrive at the hospital. He had intended to confront me, but when he saw Heather's bandaged face, he instinctively recoiled. Heather, half blind, didn't see his revulsion and threw herself into his arms. "Lucas, it hurts. Someone must have put something in my eye drops. They did this to me on purpose." My father, hearing this, flew into a rage and stormed over to me. "Victoria, did you do this? You're too vicious. How could I have a snake like you for a daughter? You call this taking care of your sister? Get out of this house." I calmly examined my new manicure. It was quite beautiful. I'd had the nails done extra long, perfect for scratching. As he raved, I walked past him straight to Heather's bedside. Then, with all my strength, I raked my nails down the unblemished side of her face, leaving 4 deep, bloody furrows. She let out a strangled gasp, staring at me in disbelief. "Sister, why did you hit me? I know you don't like me, but Mom and Dad are here." The scene was so noisy. I slapped her again. There, symmetrical. My father finally reacted, shoving himself between us. "Victoria, what are you doing? Do you still see me as your father?" I tilted my head, a serene smile on my face. "Didn't you just say she's my sister? Then isn't it perfectly natural for me to discipline her?" I looked at her ruined face. To have a corrosive chemical in her personal belongings and to injure herself so grievously? Who was she trying to frame? My mother let out a cold snort from the corner. "Look at this circus. All you people do is cause trouble. My vacation was going so well and you had to call me back for this." Then she glanced at my father. "Mr. Song, you seem to care an awful lot for this adopted daughter of yours, or is she something more?" His face flushed. Beside my mother, Vivian pouted. "But Dad, I'm also obedient and sensible. Don't be so biased. Sister Heather and I were both adopted." I rubbed my ears, tired of their screeching, and simply walked out of the room. Let them fight. Heather's face wasn't growing back. A few days later, I proposed an idea. "We should throw a party," I announced at dinner, "to formally welcome Heather and Vivian into the family." My father slammed his fork down. "Victoria, what are you plotting? Heather's face hasn't healed and her eye is blind. She's so self-conscious she won't even leave her room, and you want to parade her in front of everyone?" He glared at me. How did I raise such a cruel, heartless daughter? I just smiled. "Why? Do you want to kick me out of the house again?" I said, finishing his thought for him. "Last time I let it slide out of respect for Lucas being present, but you can't just blatantly lie like that. Who really deserves to be kicked out of this house? I think we both know." He began to argue with my mother, but Vivian suddenly burst into tears. "Sister, you really want to throw a party for us? I've never been to a real party like that. I'm sure Sister Heather hasn't either. I bet deep down she's really looking forward to it, right?" My mother, her heart aching for Vivian, immediately hugged her. "We'll have a party. We'll definitely have a party." Vivian shot a triumphant look at Heather's closed bedroom door. I smiled too. I just wondered if she'd regret helping me so much when she saw the surprise I'd had prepared for her. On the night of the party, I made sure everyone was present. Trevor was called back home, and Lucas was personally invited. Heather, despite her initial resistance, was forcibly dragged out of her room by a triumphant Vivian. The moment Trevor saw Heather's disfigured face, he actually recoiled. "Damn, what happened to you? You look hideous," he said, gagging theatrically. Heather's face, or what was left of it, went white. She tried to flee, but Vivian held her fast. "Don't run, sister. This party is for us. You can't miss it." Lucas, standing nearby, shot a disdainful look at Heather and gently pulled Vivian's hand away from her. "Vivian, don't dirty your hands." Heather stared at him in disbelief. "Lucas, are you saying I'm dirty?" He gave a cold snort, refusing to look at her. "Miss Song, please don't be so familiar. We barely know each other." "We barely know each other?" Heather repeated, her voice cracking. Oh, this was going to be even more fun than I had anticipated. They were going to self-destruct before I had to lift a finger. But where was the fun in that? I preferred to be the one to light the match. I stepped to the microphone on the small stage we'd set up. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice ringing through the crowded ballroom. "This party is to celebrate the 2 new sisters my family has recently welcomed. A simple verbal introduction feels a bit lacking, so I've prepared a short video for each of them." I paused, letting a sly smile touch my lips. "Of course, I encourage you all to film as you please. I guarantee there will be a big surprise." The guests murmured, confused but intrigued. It was time. "Roll the first clip," I said to the butler. The first image that flashed onto the massive screen was not a video, but a document, the official results of a paternity test between Heather Song and my father, David Song.
My father went pale and tried to rush the stage. "Victoria, are you insane? Stop this." My mother, finally seeing the proof she'd long suspected, slapped him hard across the face. Well, Mr. Song, no wonder you cared so much for this little tramp. She's your bastard child. Watch your mouth, Linda. Who are you calling a tramp?" I let their argument build for a moment before speaking into the mic again. "Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, Miss Heather Song, my adopted sister, is in fact the illegitimate child of my father and another woman. He tried to spring her on me at my own birthday party, but I unfortunately had to cancel. A pity, really. Though I'm sure many of you," I said, my eyes finding Lucas in the crowd, "have already met Heather at other parties. Am I right, Mr. Croft?" Lucas flinched, avoiding my gaze. "Tori, I don't know what you're talking about." "You don't? Well, let me jog your memory." I snapped my fingers. The next video played. It was Heather, before her injury, in her bedroom with Lucas. Their conversation was crystal clear. "Heather, isn't it risky for you to be here so openly?" "What's there to be afraid of?" Lucas laughed, his hands roaming freely. "That idiot Tori will be out of her mind soon enough. We won't have to worry about her. Now, did you miss me?" The rest of the 3-minute high-definition clip was a silent, intimate scene that left nothing to the imagination. When it ended, I spoke again. "My fiancé, Lucas Croft, sleeping with my paternal half-sister, and then he pretends not to know her. Lucas, you're not going to tell me you abandoned her just because her face got ruined, are you?" He was ashen-faced, trying to fight his way out, but the security guards I'd hired blocked his path. "Victoria, you put cameras in this house?" "It's my house, why wouldn't I said before signaling for the next clip. This time, it was Heather and Trevor. My brother had no shame, preening for the camera as he had with Heather. "And this," I announced, "is my brother Trevor with, well, personal preferences, I suppose." "No!" Heather shrieked, finally finding her voice. We didn't know we were siblings." I smirked. "Oh, but you did, dear sister." The butler played the next file, an audio recording of Heather and my father. "Dad, when can I get my real identity back? I don't want to be some adopted daughter." "Patience, my dear Heather. Once we drive Victoria out, half the battle is won. Your most important task is to secure Lucas Croft and Victoria's company. That's a fortune we must get our hands on." The ballroom erupted in whispers. The tongues were not just dysfunctional, they were predatory. Heather, realizing she was completely exposed, tried to run but was blocked. Trevor was still trying to show off to a girl next to him, so I had a guard quietly gag him. My mother and Vivian were watching the drama unfold with undisguised glee. "Don't worry," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "The fun isn't over. Trevor wasn't just involved with Heather." I landed my eyes on a horrified Vivian. "Sister, what are you talking about?" 2 more videos played in quick succession, one of Vivian and Lucas, and one of Vivian and Trevor. I looked at Lucas. "Mr. Croft, I have to say you're not picky. You'll take both sisters." My mother rushed the stage trying to cover the screen. "Victoria, stop it. Take it down." "Sorry, no can do." And I had the butler display the final document, the maternity test results for my mother Linda Jiang and Vivian Kowal, a 99% match. And one more thing, Vivian, you shouldn't call me sister. You should call me little sister. After all, you're the firstborn child of my dear mother and that drug trafficker she loved so much. Vivian stared at me, her face a mask of pure terror. You knew everything?" "Of course I knew," I said with a laugh. "Did you think I was an idiot?" I would never have forgiven her. She was a wolf I'd let into the henhouse. And a wolf, sooner or later, will always bite. I ignored their screams and smiled at the stunned crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust today's melon was big enough for everyone. The party is now over. Please see yourselves out. The guests, all seasoned socialites, offered a few polite platitudes and fled. Lucas was physically thrown out. Once the last guest was gone, I had the guards release my family. My father immediately charged at me, but I kicked him squarely in the kneecap, sending him crumpling to the floor. "Victoria, you dare hit your father? I'm your mother, you ungrateful wretch." I ignored them and delivered a sharp, stinging slap to each of their faces. "The only people getting out of this house are you," I said calmly. "I paid a visit to Grandfather Jiang last week. I told him everything. As of tomorrow morning, he will be publicly disowning me, Mother, and I will be publicly disowning all of you." I glanced at the two girls. "And as for your precious bastard children, you can take them with you." I waved my hand, and the guards tracked the four of them, screaming and struggling, out the front door. Only Trevor remained. He scurried over, a fawning smile on his face. "Sis, I don't have to leave, right? I'm your real brother." "My real brother," I repeated, tracing a finger along his familiar jawline. "Trevor, did you know I had a dream? In my dream, you sold me to a group of thugs you hired. All for Heather. You dragged me into an alley yourself. First, they assaulted me. Then they beat me to death. And you stood aside and filmed it." I looked into his terrified eyes. "Do you think I would let you stay?" "No, that was just a dream," he stammered. "I'm your brother." But it wasn't a dream. It was a memory. And after my rebirth, I finally learned the truth. Trevor wasn't my brother. He was a baby swapped at birth by a serial murderer, a man who had killed my real infant brother, a man who, thanks to a tip I provided to the police, was now on death row. I kicked Trevor's legs out from under him. "Don't defile my sight." The guards dragged him out. The next day, my grandfather and I made our public announcements, severing all ties. I added my own, formally annulling my engagement to Lucas Croft. The fallout was swift and brutal. Heather started a live stream, crying about how her cruel sister had abused her. The internet predictably turned on me. So I released the unedited videos from the party. The internet hive mind, realizing it had been duped, turned its fury on Heather. But scandal is a form of fame. She gained followers and started selling cheap trinkets online. Her success was short-lived. I sent her new address to Trevor and Vivian. They found her during one of her live streams. The ensuing struggle was violent and frenzied. When they pulled knives and began their fatal attack, the entire world watched, live. The police arrived to find a gruesome scene and two murderers caught in 4K. With irrefutable evidence, they were both given life sentences. My mother, upon hearing the news about her precious Vivian, had a complete mental breakdown and was committed to a psychiatric hospital. My father, blacklisted everywhere, ended up a beggar on a highway overpass. In a final act of mercy, I delivered all the evidence of his attempt to poison me to the police. They arrested him while he was fighting a stray dog for scraps. Now he has stable employment, a sewing machine to operate, 3 meals a day, and mandatory exercise. A much better life. The only remaining nuisance was Lucas. He kept showing up at my gate, begging to see me. One day, I put on my highest heels and went out. "Lucas," I said, my voice dripping with disdain, "have some shame. Is your appetite really so broad? After sleeping with both Heather and Vivian, you still want to marry me?" He fell to his knees, crocodile tears streaming down his face. "Tori, please, listen to me. I was forced. You know me, Tori. In my heart, there's only you." I laughed until tears came to my own eyes. All the while, my phone was discreetly recording. I posted the video online. The public humiliation was the final straw for his family. They moved overnight, disowning him and leaving him with nothing. The last I heard, he'd taken my father's old spot on the overpass. And me? With all the trash finally taken out,
I was free to enjoy my own brilliant life.